We're recording on this computer and we're going live. That's it, Jude. We're live. Hit it. Take it away.
Hello, I'm Jude Allume. That's Wil Masisak. We're going to do a little show for you.
What is
We're
this?
going to do a little show for you today called Old School, New School Football.
We can't hear you.
Will, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you? Old school, new school football. That's us. That's us. I'm the old school part. You're the new school part. How was your week, Jude?
You know, if you guys haven't figured he's the old school by this point, then you know.
Maybe they don't have videos, Jude. Maybe they're just listening to the audio portion and they can't tell.
I feel like you could hear it in your voice that, you know, you're the old school as well.
I don't know what you're talking about. I remember before the forward pass was legal. Yeah.
Back in my day, we used to run the ball 30 times minimum.
We didn't even practice pass defense, Jude. We didn't even practice it. I'm not even joking.
There was a lot of Oklahoma drills, I'm assuming.
It's like you worry about this and you tackle this guy and you watch your running back and you watch the option, blah, blah, blah. If they throw it, it'll probably be incomplete and they won't do it again for like another hour. So don't worry about it.
Well, in today's NFL, they throw the ball a ton, much like they did this past week. Let's get on into it. Let's start with, I think it was, well, maybe not the game of the week, but a really good game again on Monday night. Rams versus Cardinals, probably an unexpected outcome for a lot of people.
Well, based on the fact that the COVID monster took a couple of great players away from the Rams.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the assumption was just ahead of the game when it found out that Jalen Ramsey wasn't going to play in the game and Tyler Higbee not going to play, that it just looked like, well, already it was going to be a close game, and now you lose these two contributors, probably going to be bad for the Rams. But honestly, you know, it's kind of like I said, there's two factors I think at play here. One is definitely that time of year where teams that are desperate for a win sometimes come out a little bit sharper than they normally do. And the other factor is teams that peak early in this league, very dangerous to assume that they're going to look just as dominant in December as they did in September and October. So
are we saying the Cardinals peaked early?
I mean, maybe a little bit. Yeah. I mean, they were hot out of the box. And then this whole, you know, Kyler Murray injury sort of slowed the roll a little bit. And now, you know, they had a key division game there. They could have put the division away. They didn't. So at the minimum, they made their path a little bit harder to get to the finish line. Long way to go still, you know, a lot of good matchups, a lot of division matchups left. But yeah, this was a big one. What did you make of this? You agree with me that maybe the Rams were desperate and the Cardinals were a little, you know, over the peak?
I definitely don't agree with you. The Cardinals are over the peak. I mean, this is a 10-3 team. I'm not saying they're over the peak at all, but the Rams being desperate, that one, 100%. They needed a win. I feel like I said this last week. They needed a win. They started so strong, and I said, if they can get hot, you know, this is the perfect time for you to get hot before the playoffs and get that ball rolling for you right now. This is a great way to get that ball rolling with a key, beautiful win over the Arizona Cardinals that's leading your division. Now look at it. You know, you put yourself back in position to maybe make a run at the division if the Cardinals end up losing a couple more down the stretch. And, you know, if these guys went out, even the number one seed in the NFC isn't out of the question for them at all. Like, this is a great win for the team. And I love the way they did it. They committed to running the ball with Sony Michel, Darrell Henderson out again. Michel was basically the only running back, and he took pretty much every carry for them. And, you know, it worked, you know. And then they had, of course, Cooper Kupp. That connection's been there even when they haven't been playing so good, Matthew Stafford to Cooper Kupp. But what was extra impressive is, you know, it looks like Odell Beckham is kind of gaining back his form. It sucks because now here they are dealing with more outbreaks where it's like 7 or 8 more people have COVID, including Odell Beckham. And it's like, man, these guys just can't get a break. Hopefully, you know, these guys are vaccinated, so they'll be able to play, even though they have tested positive for COVID. And, you know, as long as they test positive 2 times before Sunday's game, they'll be able to play. And, luckily enough for them, this happened early enough in the week where, it's not completely out of question that, that happens for them and they can get a lot of their key guys back.
Yeah. I mean, compared to, like, for instance, the Chiefs, who just found out today that they might lose Chris Jones, not just for a week, but it's unclear that they haven't come right out and said he's vaccinated. That means he might miss 2 games. Which would be because of the timing. You time it wrong, man. Like a couple days after your game, it's really hard this year to try to make it back. So at any rate, though, things tightened up a little bit out in the NFC West and also in the NFC in general. What'd you make of the Packers? Aaron Rodgers, obviously, according to him, playing hurt with the toe, but they're managing to maybe, are they coming from nowhere to try to take off the top seed here away from Arizona and Tampa Bay?
No, not at all. I'd say they've been pretty consistent all season. They've had the one ugly game at the beginning of the year, but again, nobody is going to fault them for losing that game to the Saints because Aaron Rodgers didn't participate in any of the preseason activities, any of the OTAs, anything at all. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all times. I don't think you'll find many people that are going to disagree with that. But any football player who's away for multiple months and then just gets thrown into a game is going to look bad, and that's what happened. So we forgive that. The other game they lost, I believe he wasn't playing. He was out for that game with COVID. I don't quite remember the third game, but I know there hasn't been a game in which the Packers just came out and they didn't look like they were capable of winning that game. They haven't been outmatched by anybody outside of that first game again. And quite frankly, they've been beating up on some people as of late. There was a close game with the Bears in the first half, way closer than I expected, but they did what a good team does. They made their second half adjustments and they beat up on the Bears in the second half. It looked like 2 completely different teams. And they find themselves now in the number 1 seed. So all they have to do is pretty much win out, and that's locked up for them. So I guess it's just how Aaron planned it all along. And, for him to be playing on a toe that's, broken or strained, fractured, whatever the case may be, and he's still putting up numbers like he's putting up, just kind of adds to the legend that is Aaron Rodgers. You might want to take that mute off.
Is he the greatest fantasy quarterback of all time? We'll give him that.
And is he the greatest fantasy quarterback of all time?
Yeah, and probably the best thrower of all time. I'll give him those 2, and one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Yeah, absolutely.
One of the best quarterbacks of all time.
I agree on all 3. You can, your taste may, your mileage may vary. Let's put it that way. I don't know, this whole, the way that the season is shaping up now, we're starting to get, fewer and fewer teams that you think of in your mind as being real contenders, right? Mm-hmm. So in the NFC, we're now going to put the Rams. You were going to, they were sort of, for me, on the border. Now they won this game against Arizona. I guess you have to consider them an actual contender. Mm-hmm. But do you really see them like plowing through a postseason that's on the road against, say, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and somebody else? That seems like a lot.
I don't know about plowing through. I think they have the pieces to compete with everybody. They have the pieces to compete with the Tampa Bay, with the Arizona, as we've seen, and with the Rams as well. They not the Rams, excuse me, with the Packers, with the Bucks, and with the Cardinals, as we've already seen. They've got solid defense. They've got a good offense. Sony Michel looks to be coming on. Odell Beckham looks to be coming on. And even Von Miller looks like he had his best game as a Ram this last week. I finally heard his name while watching a game. Like the previous weeks, it's like, is Von Miller even on this team? I've probably seen him more times on the sideline than I've seen him like in the game, affecting things. So it's like everything seems to be going the right way. Again, they're dealing with this COVID situation, which really sucks because it seems like we're picking up some steam. But, Sean McVay just kind of put your coaching hat on, as you've been doing all season, find a way to win, even if you are going to be without a few key pieces,
You buying on Dallas, buying or selling?
No, I'm selling. You've got this team is not a great defensive team. It's a solid defensive team, but their bread and butter is what they can do on offense. So right now we're seeing Dak looking very pedestrian. And we're also seeing Zeke looking very pedestrian. This is absolutely alarming for the Dallas Cowboys, because if you can't put up the points that you're accustomed to putting up, you're putting a lot more strain on that defense. And yes, they show up here and there, and, you know, they can make a play when it counts, but they're playing to a level where they kind of need that defense to be the better part of their team. For Zeke to not rush for 100 yards, and I don't even know how many weeks, is unbelievable. And this last game they played was without Tony Pollard. So basically it was Zeke's show for him to come out, do what he wants, and run all over the defense. That just didn't happen. Dak Prescott has been throwing interceptions at an alarming rate as of recently. And it's like, you've got all these receivers, you've got a pretty good tight end, and it's like you're throwing it to the other team instead of throwing it to your receivers, it seems like. You've got CeeDee Lamb, and, you know, here and there he flashes, but this is a guy who every week should be a matchup nightmare. And then you pair him with Amari Cooper, another guy every week who's going to be a matchup nightmare, but it's just not panning out like that for the Cowboys. Yes, they'll probably win the division because, again, the NFC least. No offense to my Giants, but you guys suck as well. You don't help that in any way whatsoever. But it's like, who wants to win the division as opposed to who is going to win the division, because they all just take turns being so middle of the road. But Dallas started off hot with their really good offense, but now they're kind of cooling off, and it's a lot more of, well, we're going to be in a close matchup this week as opposed to we're going to blow these guys out. Like Washington, they came out and they played really great in that first half, and it looked like Washington didn't stand a chance. And then all of a sudden became a game late. It became a game later in the second half, that fourth quarter. And, you know, Washington almost escaped with this one. They were really hot coming in, and I anticipated that it was going to be that, but I thought it was going to be Washington commanding it from the start. And Dallas just happened to squeak out of there with a win. So, yes, they'll end up in the playoffs. They'll end up winning the division, but this isn't a team that I'm looking at like, yeah, they can be a sneaky, you know, third, fourth seed that's going to end up going all the way. I'm just not buying it at all.
Yeah, just last NFC question. Minnesota or 49ers, which is more likely to maybe steal a game in the postseason?
Jeez Louise. I mean, you look at Minnesota, and then they just come out and they beat up on your Steelers like they did this last Thursday, and it's like the week before.
But they blew them out in the first.
They also blew up, yes.
They came within. I mean, they had the Steelers had a ball in both hands of the receiver.
He should have lost it. Yes, Pat Freiermuth drops what's potentially could have been a game-winning or at least a game-tying. Yeah. And
so the thing is, you know, you're both teams. You're the team that came out and ran all over it. You know, they have pretty arguably the best producing running back in the NFL. Kirk Cousins is having his career season. They have the most sacks of any team in the NFL, and yet somehow they have all these close game losses. And they almost had another. You know,
if it's a conundrum of sorts. Like, how can you be so good and so bad within seconds?
They're the poster child for the 2021 NFL, man.
It's just unbelievable. You just lose all faith in them, and then they come out in that first half and absolutely beat up on the Steelers. And then they're like, hey, wait a second. We're the Vikings. And they let the Steelers right back into the game. And it's like, what do you want me to believe? As a result, I can't believe anything. Like, I can't put any stock to a team that plays like that. Within not even game to game you change, but literally in the same game you go from I'm going to be really good to I'm going to be really bad. And you managed to win the game, but that's whatever. Dalvin Cook was having a historic pace in that first half. I thought he was going to rush for maybe 300 plus yards in this game. And then all of a sudden they say, we don't want to rush the ball anymore, even though they can't seem to stop us running the ball. And then, I mean, San Francisco is just a little bit more consistent. They had a really close game with the Bengals this past week. They found a way to win. They've lost some close ones, but this is a pretty much overall good team. Jimmy Garoppolo, I give him a lot of flack, but he's been playing pretty solid. His numbers aren't anything that are going to blow you away, but they do the best they have. They do the best they can with what they have. I mean, for them to suffer all of these injuries at running back and still be one of the better running teams in the league is unbelievable. Devos Samuels, one of the better receivers in the league, it seems like. And they use him as a running back as well. But it seems like anytime you get the ball in this guy's hands, he can make magic happen. And then you have Brandon Nayuk, who was very slow to start off the season, but all of a sudden he's picking up steam and he comes up with a game-winning catch for them. And then George Kittle, the list is just going on and on. Him, another guy who probably started the season off a little bit slow, got injured. He's coming back and he looks like the Kittle of old, making clutch catches down the stretch and, putting them in that position to tie the game and take it into overtime. So I would 100% choose San Francisco over the Vikings. I mean, I don't know.
San Francisco is third in their division. They might not even make it, though. I mean, that's the thing about this.
But listen, if the Vikings are in position to make it, then I absolutely know that San Francisco is probably already in it. If it's coming down to that, I know for a fact I'll put whatever I need to put on it that before the Vikings can get into these playoffs, San Francisco will get into these playoffs.
Yeah, I got you. Let's go over to the AFC for a second. The Baltimore situation is just not good. They're in addition to all the injuries that they've compiled at running back, earlier in the season, and offensive line, and now their top cornerback is out, and now Lamar Jackson is hurt.
The list goes on and on.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, they're making some lip service that Lamar Jackson's going to play on Sunday. I would be absolutely floored if he plays on Sunday, or not Sunday, Saturday. I'd be floored if he plays on Saturday on a short week. But how do you figure? Somebody has to win the AFC North. Nobody seems really all that interested in winning it right now. And the Browns, speaking of COVID, they're going to play a game on a short week without what is it? It's their head coach and like five other guys or something.
Starting quarterback. It's that all. It sucks for the Browns, but hey, they found a way to pull out a good win. They were definitely the better team, but that is without Lamar Jackson. But the Browns didn't really look good in this game with or without Lamar Jackson. They looked better, I would even challenge, with
Jackson was in. Well, I'm saying the Browns looked better when Jackson was in the game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying the Ravens looked better when Huntley came in than when Jackson was in. But it's unbelievable. The Ravens just 2-3 weeks ago, top seed in AFC, looked like they were basically locked in to winning the AFC North, and now all of a sudden you might not make the playoffs. It's not completely out of the question. You found yourself now sitting at 8-5. It's crazy. Like literally, all it takes is 2 weeks for you to completely shift your standings here. But
think about AFC North. All the teams have a tough schedule down the stretch, and they all play each other. Mm-hmm. And so the chances of you getting knocked down in the wild card situation is pretty good. The chances of winning the division, if Cleveland, this is the most winnable game Cleveland has this game against the Raiders. And the other three games, they have the Packers, they have Pittsburgh has already beaten them this year, and they have Cincinnati, who's arguably the best team in the division. So, Browns have a pretty tough go if they don't win this week, and they really need this game because they're behind. And Ravens, as we mentioned, injury central. Steelers capable of beating Buffalo and getting blown out by Minnesota in one half, or destroying Minnesota in the second half. Whatever. The Bengals also have some injury problems, and they're giving up sacks at they're going out of style. Mm-hmm. Somebody's got to win that division, and might even be favored in their playoff game. Give me a pick. Give me a pick for the NFC North, man. Who's going to win?
Who's going to win the division? That's a tough question. The Bengals, I feel like, are the most talented at this point. I feel like I would put the most stock on the Bengals. The Ravens, if Lamar plays, I'm 100% sure he wouldn't be 100%. Granted, it's not a high ankle sprain. It's still an ankle, and most of what he brings to the table is what he can do with his leg, not just running it, but being able to buy himself some time to, escape those sacks and make a play downfield, like being able to escape the pocket when all that pressure is in his face. If he's not able to do that and he's just a sitting duck back there, then, do you really even want him in there? The Bengals, on the other hand, they're kind of a streaky team as well, but they've proven that they can keep in a game with pretty much anybody right now. And just for them, if they pick up health and they get Joe Burrow rolling again and Joe Mixon continues rolling, then, they're offensively just a superior team than everybody else in the division. Defensively, they've been scrappy all season long, and they haven't necessarily been blown out by anybody. So, I mean, I think it's the Bengals' opportunity to just go out there and take the division. But that's the thing. Every time they've been put in position to get that win to kind of cement themselves as leader of the pack, they just find a way to lose a game. So it's like everyone just doesn't want it enough, even though the opportunities have been there literally for all of these teams, the Browns, the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Steelers. All of them have had opportunities to run away with the division, but they just all come up short. But if I had to put my money on it because of how their roster is construed and how much better they are than everybody else on offense, I'd go with the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals to me are the favorite right now. But, aside from they travel to Denver, which is a winnable game, certainly for the Bengals. But, going to Denver, not necessarily the easiest. And then they have Kansas City, Baltimore, and Cleveland left. So, it's like they don't have a lot of margin for error. I think they could win the division on the last weekend by beating the Browns, and they could finish third in the division by losing to the Browns. So, there's a big swing from them. They could miss the playoffs. Every team in the AFC North is the same deal. They could win the division.
It's only 2 games separating the first seed from the 7th seed. So
game and a half, not even 2. Yeah, exactly. So
literally anyone can just miss out on the playoffs at this point.
And what about the AFC West? Now it looks like the Chargers are heating up. The Chiefs, as aforementioned, already heating up. But now they got to play this short week game without Chris Jones, who is the real difference maker for them on defense against, arguably the best passer in the NFL right now, or one of them. How do you see this situation going forward? May as well start. We'll talk about this week's game there to pick.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, the Chiefs to be without Chris Jones, it's a big deal. I mean, they picked up Melvin Ingram, and that's just one guy. But it seems like him, with the addition of Chris Jones and the addition of Frank Clark, really made a big difference for that defense. For them to be without Chris Jones, who was probably their best definitely their best interior pass rusher, that's significant, because now not only is he not going to be there, but it kind of gives that opposing offensive line the ability to just focus in on their other weapons in Melvin Ingram and Frank Clark. So now that defense maybe isn't going to be as great as we've seen it these last couple of weeks. Granted, it is the Chargers. This is a team like everybody else, I guess you can say, up and down, up and down. Sometimes they choose to look like the best team in the league. Sometimes they choose to look like one of the worst teams in the league. They did look really good against a pretty bad Giants team. So maybe that'll get the ball rolling for them. But every time you think, okay, they're going to build on this last win, just like every other team, it seems like they say, no, that was our good week. We're scheduled to come out and lay an egg this week. And they face a pretty good opponent. The Chiefs are coming off their best offensive performance, I would want to say, against the Raiders, and just really showed that the Raiders didn't belong in that game, with them blowing them out the entire way and just really keeping their foot on the pedal. But what I liked most is that offense finally looked like the offense that we all expect, where Mahomes is throwing the ball downfield, but it wasn't just that. They were running the ball. They were mixing those deep shots with those intermediate passes as well. And there was still so much room for improvement, because I feel like there were a lot of opportunities left out there for Travis Kelce in that game that they didn't take advantage of. And they didn't even go over the top excessively, but I feel like they could have if they wanted to. So it's like, if they're able to mix up their offensive play calling like this and just keep other teams guessing, then offensively they should be back at that level where pretty much nobody can stop them. Defensively is what I would worry about most with the Chiefs in this game. Just if Chris Jones is not playing, how is that going to affect them? How are they going to look? Are they still going to be as dominant as they've been these last few weeks? But I think they still have enough firepower to, put the Chargers away in this one. Yeah,
I mean, I think the Chiefs have a lot, and the Chargers defense is not very good. But, this game sort of has shootout written all over it. Short week, defensive players missing, two teams whose defense at times has been terrible. 2 great quarterbacks. Is that not a shootout? Or maybe they'll come out and the Schottenheimer will run the ball like the first 15 plays, like Bill Belichick.
I don't see that would happen.
I don't either. Take the over, Jude. That's what I got to
Definitely
say.
Taking the over, yeah. This is a good matchup for teams that are fighting for playoff position right now. On Saturday, the number 1 seed, I think you're a fan of them, the Patriots against the Colts.
I heard they're pretty good. The Patriots, I think, are in the driver's seat right now for the number 1 seed. Although the Patriots play 3 contenders in 4 games, the Chiefs play 4 contenders in 4 games, Chargers 3. So it's sort of like the Chiefs have arguably the most difficult schedule of all these teams that are vying for the top spot. And the Patriots seem to they have the Bills number kind of. They got a nice big lead in their division. I kind of see this as a team that's going to coast to either a 1 or 2 seed. But then you got a rookie quarterback in the playoffs, man. And the rookie quarterbacks in the playoffs, even when they've had great seasons, have not always played that well. There's just something about the jump and that intensity. At least with Mac Jones, you got a guy that played in the college football playoff and understood the difference in the step up in competition. But it's a small window into what the NFL playoffs are like. So I don't know. In terms of this week's game, I like the Patriots. I'm going to have a hard time picking against them. The Colts, I think, are a team that is a little bit one-dimensional. And so if you can, you're a guy like Bill Belichick, you're going to try to take away what they do well. So take the under on rushing yards against the Colts. I just feel like the Patriots are well organized right now. They don't have a lot of holes, and their quarterback is playing well enough based on what's surrounding him and the coaching that he's getting to be able to win games like this against the Colts. How do you see this game?
I like a lot of what you said. I think you're absolutely right. That's what Belichick does. Belichick 101, take away what they do best. They love running the ball. Jonathan Taylor is the hottest running back, not as hot, the hottest running back in the league right now. You absolutely know.
Dalvin Cook just had 200-something yards, but yeah. Okay.
let me see it done with consistency, because week in and week out, Jonathan Taylor has been showing up and balling out. So that's what they're going to try and do. They're going to try and run that ball. And, they're a really good run blocking team as well. So Belichick has got his work cut out for them. So I absolutely expect they're going to come out and see what the Colts are going to come out, and they're going to try and see what the Patriots are doing to stop them and try to curtail that. But I also expect Frank Reich to say, hey, we're fighting for our playoff lives. I know for a fact that Belichick is going to try and stop us. Let's game plan and see how we can take advantage of that, knowing that they're going to commit and possibly overcommit to stopping the run. Maybe we unleash a lot more of that play action on them. Maybe we just come out and, let Carson Wentz play a little bit more. I'm not 100% fan of that, but hey, Carson has not been having a bad season, and he's not a rookie quarterback or anything like that. So maybe we can just, allow him to air it out a little bit more this game, just to kind of let them know, hey, you can't load up in the box and force us to play offensively how you want us to play. The other thing is, what are the Colts trying to do? They're trying to emulate what the Titans were doing, where they're going to pound the ball and they're going to play really good defense. The key part of that is the really good defense. So I think this might be one of the best defenses that Mac Jones has faced in a long time. Like, it's been a couple of weeks where he's faced some pretty mediocre or even terrible teams, and they've taken advantage of it. So let's see how Mac Jones, with so much on the line, that number 1 seed, and so many other teams seeing that you're in that number 1 seed and wanting to give you their best shot, let's see how he reacts to it. I think it's going to be a good game. I know they're the number 1 seed, and everyone's afraid to pick against Belichick, especially once it gets later towards the years. But I think the Colts are in great position right here to pull off an upset, especially when factoring in you're fighting for your playoff lives. At this point right now, every loss just significantly diminishes your chances of making it to the dance, all right? You're the Colts. I feel like this is a team that can really make some noise if they find a way to get into it, just because I like the way they're built. I love that offensive line, love that defense as a whole. I love the running back. Anybody probably could have guessed that, because I keep gushing over him. Jonathan Taylor, probably the best running back in the league right now. I love what they have. And I love Carson Wentz as a guy who's kind of proving it to everybody. I'm not washed up. I just wasn't in the right system. So I love an upset for the Colts this game. Just confuse Mac Jones a little bit. Play that hard-nosed defense. You'll be able to get out of there with a W. And you're at home. Come on. Take care of business at home, baby. might want to take that mute off, man. That
sorry
mute
about
button
that.
is kicking your butt.
Drilling and sirens going on, man. I'm sorry. I just didn't want it to cover up your beautiful voice. So on that note, with all you just said, what about Pittsburgh and Tennessee? Pittsburgh, by the way, you should know this, is undefeated against the spread when they're down a favor. When they're a more than a 4 or more point underdog. They're covered every time. It's and it's a team playing at home. Once again, this is it pretty much for their season. They either have to win out or win at least 3. But with an upcoming game at Kansas City, I would figure, this pretty much puts them into looking at the draft if they don't cover in this game. But you seem skeptical. Tell me how you feel.
Just because the Steelers, man, another one of those teams. There's too many of these teams where it's like, hey, we can compete with anybody, but also we can lose to anybody. There's too many of them in the league right now. I don't like it. I like to say with confidence that, hey, this is a team that has playoff experience. They've played well all season. They're going to absolutely go out there and take care of business. I can't say that about the Steelers. Every time they're about to lose a game, they find a way to claw their way back. Sometimes they fight all the way back. Sometimes they lose in those last few waning moments. But even with all the deficiencies the Steelers have, I've said it 1,000 times. Yes, I know they're sitting at 9-4, but I don't like this Titans offense one bit. I think if they play any sort of decent team, they crumble. Luckily for them, their last game was against the Jaguars, so they're able to take care of what possibly might be the worst team in football, especially with all the news surrounding the head coach going on over there with Urban Meyer. But that's besides the point. The Titans, they don't have an identity. Are they a run-first team? Are they a pass-first team? Is Ryan Tannehill the answer for them at quarterback? We've seen what he looks like without A.J. Brown. We've seen what he looks like with, I don't know how healthy he is, but finally back from IR, Julio Jones. And it wasn't a great product. It hasn't been a great product ever since Derrick Henry went down. That's what they want to do. They want to give Henry the ball and let Tannehill play sort of second fiddle to him and everybody else. They need A.J. Brown because that's who Tannehill feels most comfortable throwing the ball to. He's not there, so I can't really say with any confidence, yes, the Titans are going to be able to come away with the victory in this. They're on the road in Pittsburgh. It's going to be rough conditions. Steelers fighting for their playoff lives at this point. I think they say, at some point, I hope they say, you know what? Instead of waiting until the second half and fourth quarter to start playing some good offense, let's try doing that earlier in the first half. Hopefully, I pray this is what they say, and they can put together a full game. If they put together a full game, a lot of these teams that they've lost to, it wouldn't even be a contest. No. But, I don't know what it is. I don't get paid enough to analyze why.
They don't even try. Like, they're not interested in scoring. They're interested in establishing their run game and possessing the football and playing field position. But it's like the NFL 2021, you can't do that. If they had their quarterback through it, had 6 pass attempts in the first half before the last kneel down drive, and of those, I think 2 or 3 of them were screen passes, just 1 yard passes. You got to throw at least a couple of balls down the field in a whole half of football. So if you want to know why the Steelers seem like they get they're dead and then they come back late, it's because they completely change their mentality about what's going on offense. Their quarterback calls the plays. They run no huddle. They get interested.
It's almost like they don't trust Ben, but then they get put in a position where it's like, okay, we have no choice but to trust Ben. And then he says, hey, I'm not that terrible.
No, it's ridiculous. He's in no huddle. I want to say it's the last 2 seasons. He has the best mark in the NFL. He got 119 passer rating. I don't know why. If that is the case that they don't trust him, I don't think that's really what it is. I think it is just not the style that they would like to play. They want to protect their defense in a way. They're worried about, teams keeping their defense on the field. I don't understand it.
Listen, it's not about the style. It's about taking advantage of what you do best. I get it. You do have a good running back. You want to get him touches because he can make things happen. But if what you do best and if what the defense is allowing you to do is throw the ball. Throw the damn ball. Listen, you need to win games. You can't put yourself in this position repeatedly. That's why you're sitting here at 6-6-1. It's not
from
a
your lips
record.
to God's ears, Jude. You know, that's all I have to say.
It's not a pretty record, and you're not helping your playoff chances.
No, I mean, I kind of think this is the kind of game I expect the Steelers to win, just because it looks like there's no reason to really think they're better than Tennessee. And like you think Steelers can't stop the run at all. The Titans are going to come out running the football. They just have a way of they look. It's a week to week league, and the Steelers are like a quarter to quarter, half to half football team. Hey, answer this question for me. We both, I think, if I'm speaking for you correctly, we both think Cincinnati is way better than Denver. They have exactly the same record of 7-6.
Yeah.
Why do we think
one team I think you could say is happy to be 7-6, while the other one is like, man, we left a lot of meat on the bone and now we're 7-6. So right. I think that's the difference.
I think it's quarterback. I think the perception is if you have a better quarterback, you're a better team. That to me. But I feel like it's basically at this time of the year, maybe not in week 3, at this time of the year, your record is pretty much who you are. So I guess, that leads us to this game. Is there a chance that Cincinnati, with its control of its own destiny as far as winning the division is concerned, is there a chance they go to Denver and don't play at a high enough level to beat the Broncos?
Anything is possible, in the great words of Kevin Garnett. Absolutely. We've seen the Bengals come out and lay an egg. I mean, it's not unheard of at all. The Broncos, can you guess what I think about the Broncos?
They're lucky to be 7-6. So
that's one thing. But
soon to be 7-7.
What's the theme of all the teams? It seems like.
Oh, one week they're capable of beating anybody, and the next week they're capable of losing to anybody.
They're just another one of those guys. Sometimes it's like, man, this is a really good defense. I'm shocked that they're not much better. And then you look at the offense, the other side of it, and it's like, oh, okay, I can see. It's like sometimes that offense can move the ball. Sometimes, I don't know, maybe they should be playing in college or something like that. They look so bad on occasion. The Broncos are a team, I really can't put a finger on them. They've got a good running attack, but, this is a quarterback-driven league, and Teddy Bridgewater, sometimes he looks really good, sometimes he looks really bad. He's taken more shots downfield this year, and it's unbelievable because he still has a crazy accurate arm. And when they do take those shots, more often than not, he's connecting on them. But it just doesn't seem like they can string together plays consistently enough for them to be a potent offensive attack. That's a shame because they really do have the pieces. I think you put an Aaron Rodgers, you put a Patrick Mahomes, you put one of those top-tier quarterbacks on this team. This is a team that could definitely run away with the AFC. And it's crazy because I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is that bad of a quarterback. Again, very accurate arm. He's taking more shots downfield. But for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to be working. It's not consistent enough. Sometimes you see a glimpse of a really good team, and then most of the time, unfortunately for them, is just a middle-of-the-pack team. That's what it's been. That being said, they are home against the Bengals this week. I'm going to ride with the Bengals. I'm sorry. At some point, the Bengals just have to say we're a better team. We've got the better quarterback. They might have the better defense. We have the better offense. We're going to make this work. We have Jamar Chase. We have Joe Mixon. We have Joe Burrow. We're going to make this work. They're not going to be able to stop us. We're going to score points, put together a complete game, and beat the Broncos. Or at least they need to, so that way they can definitely find themselves in the playoffs. Again, they're another team in position right now. One loss is severely putting you at a detriment.
There are 13 teams that are actually in the hunt in the AFC. I mean, they have the 3 worst teams in the league in the AFC probably, but they have 13 teams in the hunt. And the Dolphins, literally, there's a path for them that isn't totally unreasonable for them to be the number 1 seed. They're the 13th seed.
I don't know about number 1 seed, but
they can win their division. They can win their division, and they mathematically are capable of finishing 13-4, which would put them in the position. So. The Dolphins are 6-7. Sorry, no. The best they can be is 11-7. But 11-7,
10-7.
No, there's 17 games now, right?
Yeah, so it could be 10-7.
Yeah, that could be 11-7. I'm just kidding. 10-7. Old man argues at cloud. No.
We teach math on this program as well. You're welcome.
Well, okay. They're capable of winning their division at least. Maybe not the number one seed is, everybody else would have to lose out. Probably not going to happen. But my point is, there's no margin for error where you're a Denver, you're a Pittsburgh, you're a Colts. You pretty much have to win the games you're supposed to win at the minimum in order to get yourself in the playoffs. So it's shaping up in an interesting way.
Bengals and Broncos right now on the outside looking in. Every loss just pushes you further on down.
Yeah. Well, it'll be another week of those. That's for sure. That is for certain. And, we'll bookmark this episode and you'll go 3 weeks from now and you'll be like, oh my God, we thought the Patriots were a lock for the number one seed, and the Dolphins turn out to, beat them. Yeah. So, I guess what I'm saying is it's all believable to me. If somebody skipped me ahead 3 weeks and told me the results, no matter what they were, I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, I can see that. I think you're right though.
At different points, the Titans were the one seed. The Ravens were the one seed.
Yeah.
Remember this one, blast from the past? The Bengals were the one seed.
Yeah. No, before the season, even people were talking Cleveland, and they definitely talked Chargers and Chiefs and the Raiders. Remember the Raiders had a moment early in the season where we were like, are they for real? So yeah, it's been the Bills. It's been pretty much passed around to kind of everybody. Maybe the Colts are the only contender that hadn't really gotten that, we think they were the best team in the league, but even them, they started running the ball with Jonathan Taylor and people were like, okay, we buy the Colts. So yeah, it's just, it's kind of amazing actually. Anyway, enough. I think we have more to talk about next week, Jude.
For sure.
You got a way to send us out of this place. By the way, hit the like button, hit subscribe, join us again. That way you'll find out, you'll be like the first person that hears when we're on the air or when a new podcast hits. So
jumping the gun there, though.
Yeah.
Jumping the gun there. Where's your final?
I just do it. It's a tease, Jude. It's like you're gonna tell us more. But before you listen to Jude, here's more. Wait, no. You got some way to get us out of here, Jude?
Just my final thought, and that's stick a fork in the Bills. They're done. The team that I so long, so hard rode for. I said, this is a team that's so greatly matched offensively and defensively, and they just lost their way down the stretch. And I'm sorry, I can't. I got to get off the train at some point. And this is that point for me. Goodbye, Bills. That 1 year where you looked like you were going to take over that AFC East division, be the team to beat for years to come. Wasn't years. It was 1 year. I'm disappointed for you. I'm sorry for you. It's very disappointing. But again, stick a fork in them. They're done.
Although we've stuck a fork in a couple of teams that weren't quite done. So I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you, Jude. But who knows?
I'm going to be right on one of these.
At least one, right? Exactly.
At least one.
Yeah,
after being wrong about the Bills so many times, I think they're going to prove me right on this one.
Now, my final thought is, Jude, I have to give some props to Jude. You had the Arizona Cardinals being one of the top teams in the NFL, if not the top team, and possibly the one to unseat Tampa Bay. And I got to say, they've had a season. They're not a fluke. They have a really good team put together there. And despite their loss last week, yeah, that's Jude, I don't mean to sound so surprised, but I think you actually know what you're talking about sometimes.
A little bit. On occasion, I do, yeah.
Once in a while.
It's like I know maybe 25% of what I'm talking about football-wise, The sad part is I'd say football is what I know most about. So everything else, 25% as the cap is just a steep downhill fall after that one.
Well, for me, I just try to say a lot because if you say enough things, eventually something you say will be correct. And on that note, he's Jude Allume. That's the THEE Mr. Allume on social media. I am at Accidental Zen, also known as Wil Masisak.